If your English is strong, but your ideas don't land, you may be experiencing what I call the professional communication gap. Have you ever felt like your English is strong, but your ideas don't land the way you expect? You explain something clearly, but people seem confused. You share an idea, but it doesn't carry the level of confidence or authority you intended. Or you contribute in meetings, but you're not always recognized for your thinking. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. After working with thousands of professionals and students across industries such as finance, tech, healthcare, and consulting, this is one of the most common challenges that I see, and it has a name. It's called the professional communication gap. So, what is this gap? The communication gap is the difference between what you intended to communicate and how your message is actually perceived. And here's what's important: this gap is almost never about grammar or vocabulary. Most professionals I work with already have very strong English skills. The issue is much more subtle. It's how your ideas are structured, how your tone comes across, and how clearly and directly your message is delivered or not. Research in workplace communication consistently shows that misunderstandings happen not because people lack knowledge, but because messages are not interpreted the way that they're intended. So, even small differences in phrasing or structure can significantly change how your message was received. So, there's three main reasons that this gap exists. First, most people focus on what they want to say and not how they want to say it. Second, communication is evaluated through clarity, tone, and structure, not just correctness or grammar ability. And third, most professionals are never trained to analyze their own communication patterns. So they repeat habits that feel natural, but may not be effective in professional contexts. This is something that I see consistently across industries and experience levels, even at senior levels. So, what this gap looks like, let's make this practical. The communication gap typically shows up in three ways: clarity. So, you're technically correct, but your message is harder to follow than it needs to be. This is often because of over explaining or adding too much detail or using complex grammar or making complex sentences have too many phrases. Then there's tone. So your message sounds either less confident or more indirect or too direct than you intended. Now, this can affect how others perceive your credibility. You know you're an expert in your area, but others need to perceive this as well. And lastly, there's structure. Structure is more about the way that you organize your ideas. So, your ideas could be strong, but they're not organized in a way that's easy to process. So, every culture has its own structure and expected organization for written and oral messages. So, this is something that can be learned. Now, here's a key insight: people don't evaluate your thinking directly, they evaluate how easily they can understand your thinking. But the impact goes beyond communication. Over time, this gap can affect how you build relationships at work, how much trust you establish, whether your ideas are adopted or not, and even your visibility and promotion opportunities at work. Now, I've worked with many highly capable professionals who are not being recognized at the level they deserved. And this was not because of their expertise level, it was because of how their communication was perceived. So, as you listen to the next part, I want you to think about this. Which of these patterns sound most like you? Because that awareness is what actually drives improvement. So, let's go into five practical strategies that you can start using right away to fill this gap. So, the first point is lead with the main point. Now, you start with your main idea and then you can explain. Instead of building up slowly to your main idea, say, my recommendation is, the key issue is. This immediately improves both the clarity and authority. Now, this works for written and oral communications, right? In other cross cultural environments, some people leave the main idea till the end of the email or the instant message. But in North American contexts, at least, we always want to put that main idea right up front. But that does mean that you can introduce the idea with a warmer or establish a relationship first. So the second point is reduce by 20%. So most professionals over explain, but strong communication is not about saying more, it's about making ideas easier to understand. So after you write or say something, ask yourself, what can I remove without losing meaning? Often less is more in this context. So let's try for that reducing 20% of the message. It's not too much, it's just a little bit to get you started. The third tip I have for you is strengthening your tone. So pay attention to soft language. A lot of us have gotten into the habit in using phrases like, I think maybe, or I'm just checking, or this is kind of an issue, but just, maybe, kind of. These words reduce your perceived confidence. Instead, use stronger language like I recommend, following up on this point. The main point is, and we can continue with those types of strong indirect language. Being too indirect, although you may believe that this is being polite or subtle, it's actually reducing your credibility and it is also reducing your confidence in your ideas. So, we're going to try to avoid that soft language and believe it or not, being more direct will actually build your relationships, not weaken them. So the fourth tip is using clear structures. Now, when your thinking is complex, your structure must be simple. So we want to use patterns like point, reason, example. This means you would introduce your point, then you would explain your reasoning behind this, like why, and then you would give examples of how this could apply or how to implement this. So we can move from main point to reason to example. That is a very common structure that people use. Another way that we can structure our ideas is give the situation, then explain the next course of action, and then go on to result. So this model is situation, action, result. SAR, if you want to remember it. And this helps your listeners follow what you're thinking more easily. So, a lot of international professionals are conflating the order of these activities, maybe first explaining what the result would be, and then moving to action, and then explaining the situation. So, this doesn't work that well because people have an expected structure in their brain. And if your ideas follow that structure, it's much easier for them to confirm. And my fifth tip for you is to build a feedback loop. This is the most important one. So, improvement comes from awareness. If you are not aware that you're having these issues with clarity, tone, or structure, then it is impossible to get into the good habits of correcting this communication. So, the feedback loop consists of a few steps. The first one is communicate, try it out, say what you want to say. Then after that, you would get feedback, how it worked, how it didn't work, or what the issue was. After that, you want to reflect. And then for the last step, we want to adjust. Adjust means try to revise or improve in the future communication. So again, communicate, get feedback, reflect, and then adjust. This is the system I use when working with professionals because without feedback, most people repeat the same patterns. And not all feedback is equal. We want to get feedback from communication experts, people who have seen various styles of communication over time. And honest feedback is really important. You don't want to just trust anybody with your feedback because what if they are trying to avoid delivering honest but truthful feedback? So here's the key takeaway. You don't need to completely change how you communicate. You just need to refine it. Small adjustments in clarity, tone, and structure can significantly change how your ideas are perceived. In another video, I break down why your English might sound less confident. Now, if you want to take this a step further, I've created a short diagnostic to help you identify how the communication gap shows up for you. Whether it's over explaining your ideas or sounding less confident than you intended, or struggling to structure your thinking clearly. It will help you pinpoint what to focus on next, and you'll find it in the description below. So there we have it. We've got our communication gap, what it means, how it affects your workplace, and 5 strategies to improve it. The strategies and the frameworks that I've provided today are the same that I've used working with thousands of professionals across different industries to help them communicate more clearly, confidently, and effectively in real workplace situations. So once you can see your pattern, you can start changing it. And this is how we close the communication gap.